This film is a great kids movie for grown-ups. Most children will probably like it too, since no matter what harrowing hassles our little heroine is faced with, she triumphs over dopey adults in the end. It's adapted from a children's book by the late Roald Dahl and directed by Danny DeVito, and the two men's sensibilities couldn't be more complementary. DeVito sees everything from a warped perspective, and Dahl never missed an opportunity for a grotesque giggle. What's most amazing about the film is that DeVito managed to keep its very positive pro-reading and pro-learning message intact, even though otherwise he's pretty much created a kitty Carrie. And that is from Bob Strauss in the Los Angeles Daily News in 1996 about the film Matilda. Did you figure that out already? Hello and welcome to Total 90s Recall. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
This is the podcast where we are rewatching 90s films or watching for the first time and asking ourselves, were these really as good or bad as we remember? And today we're talking about 1996 Matilda. Chloe, what was your relationship with this film? Was this your first time watching? I don't think it probably was.
I saw it as a kid when I was a target age group. I don't remember when I saw it, but probably on telly or on VHS. Yeah, I really remember the scenes, like the cake landing in front of Matilda, kind of splat in front of her. Miss Trunchbull nearly drinking the newt. And of course, that big scene with the chocolate cake with Bruce Bogtrotter. It was a lovely walk down memory lane.
No, same for me. I've seen this several times. I'm pretty sure I saw it in school, but I don't know if it was after school program. Like we read Matilda in school. I don't remember if we saw it as part of that or after school program, but I saw it many times growing up. Definitely VHS. Loved it. And, you're the one that suggested this. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, rewatching it, it was really fun to come back to. As the review says, this is a kid's movie for grown-ups. I don't think I'm going to be watching this with Charlotte tomorrow, but in like 4 or 5 years, definitely, I think we're going to enjoy it together. But let's get into our time machine. Let's go back to 1996 when this came out. It came out August 2nd. It was a summer release in America, August 2nd, 1996. And it was a nice Christmas release in the UK, the 2nd of December. It placed third in its opening weekend in America behind A Time to Kill. And do you want to guess what other film we have covered in 1996? Recently, very recently.
Oh, probably Independence Day?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was still on the charts. I mean, there's lots of films that are having their 30th anniversary. I think this is tonally quite different from both of those films.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And so this budget was $36 million. If you had to guess, how much do you think it made at the box office?
Oh, I think it didn't do very well, apparently. And it had more of a life on VHS. Am I right?
Yes, you're totally right. It only made $47 million, which, again, this is like what we put on it afterwards. I thought it was a huge success, but it was totally a VHS success. Because, $47 million at the box office, not great on a $36 million budget. But yeah, it had a much bigger life VHS-wise, which is not surprising. It is a quote-unquote kids movie.
Yeah, but Danny DeVito was huge in those days. So, it is a little bit odd that it didn't do better.
And, family movies do typically do a bit better because they're family member movies. You need to do something with the kids. But I guess everybody's going to Independence Day instead.
Yeah.
Speaking of Danny DeVito, not only was he one of the stars, he directed it. He had already done War of the Roses in the 80s, Throw Mama from the Train. Later, he would do Death to Smoochie. The screenplay was by Nicholas Kazan and Robin Sweecord. I hope I'm saying that right, Robin. I apologize in advance if I'm wrong. She also did Practical Magic, Little Women, Memoirs of a Geisha, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So a varied career, an interesting career. Okay, so besides Danny DeVito, of course, it starred in the titular Matilda role, Mara Wilson, Rhea Perlman, Danny DeVito's wife at the time, and still technically his wife. They've been married for over 30 years, but they separated, got back together, separated, but are still technically married, but refused to get divorced. So, love is love. There's
Mm.
Hollywood. Anyway, uh, Pam Ferris as the Trunchbull and Mbeth Devitz. And Paul Rubens. I had to put Paul Rubens. Pee Wee Herman was the FBI agent. Small role, but I love my Pee Wee Herman. So nice little cameo there. Chloe, you're the one that suggested this. Why did you want to do this?
Because it's 30 years old, and I
Yeah.
got a bit of a kick out of the fact that a film that was a part of my childhood is now more than old enough to vote, but old enough to have children of its own. And indeed, there is obviously Matilda the musical and the movie of the musical. So it's had a whole further life since. I just thought it would be a really nice antidote to some of the darker fare that we've covered on this podcast recently.
Yes.
And I was intrigued to go back and see it.
So if somebody hasn't watched it, or it's been 30 years
Mm.
since they've watched it, which makes me feel some things in my body and soul, how would you explain this plot?
Well, I'll give you a rundown.
Yeah.
So Matilda is neglected and ignored by her horrible
Ugh.
parents, who
Mm.
are a used car salesman and an avid bingo player. They love TV and shopping. She learns to take care of herself and she teaches herself to read. She reads everything in the library. And she also starts to take revenge on her dad because he's so mean and neglectful by doing things like gluing his hat to his head, that kind of thing. And when her father berates her for reading instead of watching TV with them, she discovers her powers of telekinesis and explodes the telly, as you do.
As one does.
She's eventually sent to a school run by the monstrous Miss Trunchbull, who is not a fan of children. In fact, she thinks that the perfect school is a school without children. And she is a fan of cruel and unusual punishments. I mean, really, I think the UN ought to send some kind of envoy to investigate Cruncham Hall. Thankfully, there's Miss Honey, a nice teacher who was wronged long ago by Miss Trunchbull. Matilda also develops her telekinesis powers, allowing her to wreak revenge on the awful Miss Trunchbull and send her packing for good.
Nice. And Miss Honey adopts Matilda
Yes.
as her
Yes.
parents are fleeing the country because the
Yeah.
FBI are on their
It's got a
on their
very
trail.
hurried ending. It's got a
It's got a
very
very
kind of like,
hurried
sign these
ending.
papers. You're like, I feel like
Exactly.
maybe child social services should have been involved all along, but
I
fine.
know. I was like, shouldn't there be a witness besides like a 6-year-old? But whatever.
Yeah.
And like, the whole time Matilda's like, they're the FBI, they're the cops, and her parents are like, no, you're dumb. They're not. You're dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. Was there anything that like kind of hit differently for you this time rewatching it?
Well, I mean, obviously, being an adult now, I'm not the target age group, but I think I still had a pretty good time, and it did make me laugh out loud a few times.
Yeah.
Particularly thanks to Pam Ferris's Miss Trunchbull.
Yes.
I think the stunts are just about convincing enough that they hold up, and we can have a discussion about that. And I think there's enough sort of silly nastiness in the script and in the action that it remains quite funny because it is horrid. Like the children are
Yeah.
being thrown through windows. It's very cartoonish. Like I really laughed when Miss Trunchbull swinging the little girl around by her pigtails. I thought that was a hoot.
Yeah.
The one thing I thought was really odd, though, is the fact that it's narrated by Danny DeVito.
Yes. I was going to ask you this, what you thought about
Yeah.
that.
He's oblivious, he's cheating, he's a cruel character, he's got no self-awareness whatsoever. But then his voice is coming in on the narration, telling us about the emotional inner life of Matilda and giving us guidance on the morality of the story and life lessons. And it feels really weird. It's like, could you not have got literally any other person to do it? Like Mbeth David, who plays Miss Honey, would have been a better
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree.
narrator. So I found that very odd.
Or
as a
or
choice.
even June Squibb, who played the librarian. Like,
Yeah.
she might have been a good narrator. The thing is, it's not that Danny DeVito was a bad narrator. I think he
No.
was a good narrator. I also think he was a good Mr. Wormwood. So it's like, make a decision.
Yeah.
Watching again, I was like, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, it creates cognitive dissonance because you're like,
Yeah.
why is this same voice? Is it in character? Apparently not. So,
But I wonder if maybe they had somebody else in mind and then that person couldn't do it. And so it was like, well, I can do it because I'm directing. For me, I would say I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then as soon as it started playing, I was like, no, I'm in. Like I really enjoyed it. The music was fun. I thought, we'll get into it more, but the practical effects, I thought it held up actually really well.
Mm.
For the most part, when that little boy is like flying through the air, I'm like, okay, like this kind of looks 90s, maybe even like 70s or 80s.
Mm.
But other than that, I thought they did a really good job. I will say, and I'll talk about this more later, what aged well or not. I just think may just be where I am as a like in my life. But in the beginning, I just felt so bad for Matilda as this poor baby. And I'm like, they're just neglecting her and just throwing her in the back. And I'm like, oh dear God, like strap her down. But I mean, I know that's like the point, like I know that's the point. But I just was like, oh, this poor child. I think in like 4 or 5 years, I would totally watch this with Charlotte.
Yeah.
I don't know. She may want to watch the musical. I never watched the musical. Have you watched the new musical?
No, I haven't, but I'm aware of it, and I think it's sort of interesting because that has had a huge life of its own.
Yeah.
So the musical's by Tim Minchin. In the play, the a role of Miss Trunchbull was originated by Bertie Carvel. So it's played by a
Mm.
male actor, but then in the film musical, Emma Thompson played Miss
Yeah.
Trunchbull because she's really into her evil witch
She's
phase.
great.
She
She
loves
can
to
do
play a horrible,
she can
ugly
do
old woman,
anything. Yeah.
even though she's like a beautiful goddess in real
I
life.
know, but I love that actually when gorgeous women just play terrible characters,
When yes,
and not because like, oh, like she can be ugly too. It's more like you're letting your guard down and I don't
yeah.
know. When I'm thinking about this film, what I really enjoyed and what really stuck out for me was Danny DeVito's direction. And, this is 96. So this is 3 years after Jurassic Park, which we've already covered, episode 1. But, and they're using some effects in that. I thought he did a good, he didn't use any of that. He could have. And I think the film was better for it because I think this still stands up. Like, I think this could have been made this year in some ways. Like the boy
Mm,
flying, okay, maybe not. But,
mm,
when she has her powers and she's in her kitchen in her living room, like
mm.
it holds up. And the little girl
Yeah,
being swung around and the
yeah.
music is fun. And also I would say the fashion like his choices for aesthetics, I think help this last because he mixes old with new. As far
Hmm.
as like the costumes were very 90s, but also they look like I would have worn Miss Honey's outfit, like one of her outfits. I'm like, I would wear that tomorrow. But then you have like the cars are very old and the house is very retro. And I think
Mm.
that also is like maybe harking to Roald Dahl and his aesthetic and his books. Although I know he didn't illustrate his books. But I thought a lot of the choices that Danny DeVito made in his direction helped keep
Mm.
this like kind of classic.
On that point, the sequence with all the playing cards flying around them, it was really clever, like really well produced.
So, real quick on her powers, I'll link it in the show notes. I found a video that basically some of the things were on string, and then they did
Yeah.
use minor CGI, which was very typical to take like the
Mm.
strings out. That's very, very minor. But then they would film things happening backwards. So then it made it look like the
Oh,
flipping of the pancakes and stuff like that. They
yeah,
had to take that several times. So
yeah.
that's how they would do a lot of things is they would actually film it forwards, but then play it backwards in the edit.
Yeah, like the moment where she throws a carrot into her brother's mouth. That
Yeah.
I think was a shot
Yeah.
that was reversed. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's using practical effects really, but
Yeah.
processes in order to achieve that kind of magical thing, and then you don't have to rely on a fake looking thing. You don't end up with what we had with at the end of Sleepless in Seattle,
Yeah.
where you've got like a really fake looking Empire State Building at the end for no good reason.
No good reason. Oh.
Yes. But yeah, in terms of direction, what really stood out to me was this exaggerated, almost I'd say childlike perspective with the placing of the camera and the various sorts of choices. So there's wide angle lenses, there's lots of crash zooms, there's exaggerated things like extreme close ups, there's lots of dramatic shadows, there's crazy angles, like it's quite zany, but also
Yeah.
very much emphasizing the child's perspective. So, like when she goes to the library and she's looking up at the librarian's desk, the camera's placed very low to the ground so that the librarian in the desk is like really high, tall above her. And then the reverse shot is looking down at her and she's like really small. And so I love that kind of idea of it's taking the child's perspective.
Yeah.
Altogether, I felt like this film was quite child friendly in a way that a lot of
Yes.
modern kids' films are not. And I think it was, it's partly the bright lighting, as you said, the colorful costumes, the fact the plot is quite simple. Like
It's simple.
the FBI agent's B plot is
Yeah.
barely there. It's like just here's
Yeah.
a reminder. It's
Yeah.
quite simple, and the children feel quite childlike. They're not as sort of knowing or angsty as Hollywood child characters are nowadays. A lot of films these days have to be aimed at adolescents and at adults, so there's always questions of identity and empowerment. And I felt like this film was just like, yeah, she's lonely. She needs some friends. Rather than like, who am I? Where did this
Yeah.
power come from?
Yeah.
What I'm estranged from all of humanity. That's how it would
Yeah.
be like now.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's why I almost disagree that it would be made like this now. I think that they would make it darker.
Yeah. No, what I mean by that is if I didn't know anything about this film,
Mm,
like let's pretend I had amnesia. And
yeah.
I wake up and somebody's like, here's this film. I'd be like, oh my God, was this made like this year? As far as
Yeah.
aesthetic, I think you could,
Yeah.
but I do see what you're saying. And it does make me wonder. I wonder if now with filmmaking, we want an answer to everything and the
Mm,
audience does. And sometimes there isn't an answer and that's
mhm.
okay. This is just how things are. Um, Pam Ferris as Miss
Yes.
Trunchbull.
Legend.
I don't know who else could have played like, she just did such a great job with this, and she's really made it an iconic character,
Mm.
and she's just so nasty, but I don't know if I would say in a cliché way, she's just so nasty, and, obviously so are the Wormwoods. I mean, the Wormwoods are terrible parents, but she just really sells the nasty in this film. So
Mm.
when her downfall happens, you love it.
Yeah.
You want it. It makes total sense. Everybody's
Mm.
scared of her.
She's irredeemable, isn't she? And I think a
Yeah.
modern day film would try to have a secret, like they did with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like they try to
Mm.
explain, or they've done with Cruella de Vil. They've gone back and done an origin story to explain why the villain is the way they are. And with this, she's just horrible. And she
She's
even says that
horrible.
she never was a child in the first place.
Yeah.
So she's just this ridiculous, evil, possible murderess
Yeah.
who likes to torture children. And so you feel no compunction about her being chased out of town.
And also, I think she's like a psychopath because if she hates children so much, why is she a principal? Is it because she couldn't get any other job or she just wants to terrorize children? And then you learn this backstory that she likely killed Miss Honey. She's Miss Honey's aunt, you find out,
Mm,
first of all, but step aunt, because
mm.
which I think I think that was an interesting choice. I don't remember if that's the same in the book, but it's the step aunt, meaning like Miss Honey and Miss Trunchbull don't actually share blood. But yeah, she might have killed Miss Honey's dad and then took Miss Honey's house. But yeah, she's just horrible, but believably horrible, even despite the fact that she's throwing children by their pigtails, which that was another, if that's another thing I suggest people go look up. Maybe we'll link in the show notes of how that was done. And that was really the little girl being thrown, but she was on a crane. And yeah, poor Pam Ferris like tore her finger doing that.
Yeah, because there was like
Um,
wire to hold her onto the
yeah,
pigtails, wasn't there? Yeah.
yeah.
It's a great performance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the styling and the makeup and hair and everything really kind of sells the character, but she really leans into it 100%. It's just such a great performance because she just embodies evil.
Yes.
And she's so much fun. And I think, I mean, that's one of the things that I like about this film is that they've kept that kind of gleeful nastiness of Roald Dahl, because
Yes.
children and adults, a lot of people and characters in Roald Dahl's books are tortured, but in a hilarious way. There's lots of
Yes.
violence. There's lots of things being eaten that you don't want to eat, like the newt or the suspect chocolate
Yeah.
cake. And there's a lot of horrible punishments. The thing with Bruce and the chocolate cake, I think about it frequently. I mean, I think about chocolate cake frequently and whether or not I
Don't
could
we
eat all
all?
of that cake.
Could you? Do you think you could?
At the moment, yes. But I do think that kind of thing of, oh, here's a greedy child. Now we're going
Yes.
to make them eat an entire cake, which is very like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, using their own fallibility, their own flaw against them, is a proper Roald Dahl thing. I also love the fact that there's lots of the language that is very Roald Dahl-esque. Like he loves, and it's obviously taken from the books, all these kind of compound insults and lots of kind of nasty words. So he loves putrescent, wart, and
Yes.
squirming worm of vomit. At
Yes.
one point, Miss Trunchbull, I think she goes, "You villainous sack of dog slime." And I just love all of that. Like, it really kind of leans into those literary origins, and it loves words. And I absolutely love that aspect. But I do think that ultimately, even though it's very nasty and gleeful about it, it's still quite sweet because it's still
Yes.
taking the children's side.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say is like
Yeah.
they're none of the kids bully each other. They're all on
Yeah.
each other's side against the evil Trunchbull. It's
Yeah.
them against
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
actually really love that.
Yeah, they like the kids rally for Bruce Bogtrotter, don't they? And then there's that thing of like the children are sensible, or they have a sort of understanding of the
Yes,
world that the adults do not, apart from maybe Miss Honey. But she's kind of almost like a recovering neglected child herself.
right.
So like the adults say stupid things. Miss Trunchbull's going, "You're too small, grow up," and they're all mistakes, children. I'm glad I never was one. And so all these sorts of like nonsensical things, you're meant to look at the adults and think that they're mad, basically. And
But where are all the other teachers in this school? We only ever see Miss Honey.
yeah,
Um, and it
where
isn't
are the
just
inspectors,
where are
Molly?
the
Where are the
inspectors?
inspectors?
Where is Ofsted? Okay. Um, and I do, to your point, I find it really interesting how Matilda's like, well, don't you tell your parents? And her friend's like, they wouldn't believe me. They didn't believe me. Would yours? Matilda's like, no, because like this is just so ridiculous. Like nobody would believe this.
Mm,
But Matilda's like, well, my parents just wouldn't believe me either way because they're
yeah, or
horrible
they wouldn't
people.
care.
Yeah, they just wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Exactly. Going from, that nastiness that she's having at school is also like the nastiness that she's having at home. But I think what's
Mm.
really interesting about this is it's very a clear good versus evil. And the good in this film is intellectuals and books. And the bad in
Yes.
this film is stupid people and not reading.
Yeah, people who refuse to read, to take an interest in the world beyond materialistic things, and basically feathering their own nest.
He tells her, stop reading, watch TV.
Yeah.
What parent says that? Right. And they're all just like sitting in front of the TV with their TV dinner,
Mm,
eating. And you're small, I'm big. You're dumb, I'm smart. And I love that on so many levels because I think even if you didn't have an abusive parent, I think every child feels that way about their parent at some point. Even
mm,
if you have a great parent or your parents doing the best they can, at some point you think that your parents are talking down to you and they think, those kinds of things. But
yeah,
also, there's another layer in the fact that Wormwood is dumb. Like
yeah,
she is smarter than him, but he
yeah,
doesn't see that. He takes her for granted. I mean,
yeah.
she is doing all these terrible things to him, and he just can't put two and two together because of his own ego and his own stupidity.
And that's a fun thing for a child, I think, to watch, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
they feel like they're in on the joke. But I think also, fine, they don't read or whatever, but like they're actively anti Matilda bettering herself, and they feud with Miss Honey when she visits, and she's trying to say that maybe Matilda could go on to higher education, and Mrs. Wormwood goes, "See, that's your problem in life. You chase books, I chase looks," which I think is quite hilarious, and it just made me think of Instagram
Oh my
influencers.
gosh, yeah.
They cannot understand why Matilda reads. They say, "Why would you want to read when you got the television set sitting right in front of you?" There's nothing you can get from a book that you can't get from a television faster. I thought to myself, well, there are literally apps now which people use to summarize books because
Yep.
they get ChatGPT to summarize books for them. They can't be bothered to read, and they don't see the value in a story or in fiction. So I just love that this is a film that, obviously it's based on the book. The book has this passage that I think is put into the narration near the beginning, which is talks about how important reading is, almost as this kind of nurturing thing. And it says, "These books gave Matilda a hopeful and comforting message. You are not alone." And I
Yeah.
think that's why this is a book that librarians and teachers, particularly in Britain, absolutely love. It's a totemic book in the children's publishing world.
I loved that. You were not alone. I think
Mm,
any child who loves books, I think that's something you can relate to because it doesn't
yeah.
matter what's happening in your outside world. You have this rich world in front of you.
Mm.
And that's how she experienced the world. And despite her terrible parents at home, that is the makings of a psychopath. She's not, she's very
Yeah.
kind. I mean, except to bad people, except to the
Yeah.
Trunchbull and to her father, who's horrible to her,
But she's
right?
just
But
restoring justice,
she's just
you
restoring
know.
justice, which like
Yeah.
vigilante. I mean, there's a whole other podcast which we could take this, Chloe, of like, is Matilda a vigilante? I think I might
Yeah.
could say yes, but I'm okay with that because
Yeah.
it's a children's movie. When we're looking at this now in 2026, and we're looking back 30 years ago, I'm so old. What do you think aged well or badly?
Well, unfortunately, it's aged well in that it is a vision of a better time, but it's aged badly in that everything is worse now. So, for example, reading and literacy has been in long term decline in the UK,
Yeah.
probably in the US as well. I mean, I don't know the stats, but in the UK, the National Literacy Trust does lots of surveys on this. Just this year, there has been a slight uptick in reading
Woohoo!
enjoyment amongst children. 36.1% of children and young people said they enjoyed reading in their free time, up from 32.7% in 2025. So we're talking about just over a third of children who will read for pleasure in their free
Yeah.
time. So we've got a lot of work to do because obviously there's so many benefits that come from being literate.
Yeah.
So that's really depressing. And obviously, the adult reading for pleasure and literacy rates, actual ability to read, has been in long term decline as well. I also feel like Harry Wormwood is a man of 2026
Oh
because
no, yeah, you're right.
he, sa- he says nobody ever got rich by being honest. And I
Yes.
just thought, it makes me think of Trump.
Oh, he would be in the Trump administration right now.
Yeah, I mean, he would. He'd be taken from used car salesman directly to Department of Transport or
Or
something.
exactly.
Do you know what I
Or the
mean?
treasury. Yeah.
Exactly. Just cheat your way to success and sod everyone else. That kind of winning at all costs, a total morality free zone. That's the world that Harry wants to see, and it's come around. His wife is all about the shopping. She's all about the bingo. The bingo is quite sweet. Yeah, that kind of materialist, hyper capitalist world that's oriented around visible wealth and shopping as a pastime, and people ignoring their kids for their screens and phones. Like that is
Yes.
the world we live
Prescience.
in. Exactly. If
Yeah.
anything, I thought there was something slightly quaint about them sitting and having a TV dinner, albeit a microwave meal that looks like horrible slop. They're consuming the same media, though. They're watching the same extremely stupid game show. And that's quite wholesome compared to the fact that now we are literally all on our own separate screens. Like I was at a cafe the
Yeah.
other day in a kind of riverside beauty spot, and I looked over and the other tables had families where everyone else was on their separate phones. And but I can't judge because I do the same lots.
Exactly.
And then the last thing that I think that has aged well slash badly is that in the UK there is a resurgence in this obsession around incredibly strict Cruncham Hall style schooling. And there's these like very disciplinarian academy trusts that have super strict rules about behavior. Like the kids aren't allowed to put their hands up to ask to go to the loo during lessons. Yeah, there was
Really?
one girl who seemed
I haven't heard
like
this
she
yet.
left the school eventually, but she like got a UTI from avoiding drinking in fear, because it's like a kind of 2 strikes and you're out thing, and you're put into isolation. So it's not quite like the chokey in Cruncham Hall. It's treating kids like they're a nuisance for literally asking to go to the loo. And that to me is seriously Miss Trunchbull behavior. So yeah, I feel like things have become the world of Matilda, unfortunately.
While you were talking, I was listening, but I was curious about the literacy rates in America. And there is around 99% basic reading and writing,
Mm.
but modern competency data shows that 28% of US adults have low English literacy proficiency, scoring level 1 or below. So 28%.
Is that because they speak other languages, or is it because like they have
No.
no language competency?
Yeah, so a level 1 or below means adults can understand short text or locate single pieces of information, but struggle with complex or multi-step text.
Mm.
Okay. For me, what aged well, I kind of already talked about is the practical effects. I think because they chose the effects that they did and how his camera
Mm.
angles and how he chose to and again also I say practical effects, but I would also say aesthetically. Again, if you told me this was filmed this year, I would have believed you
Mm.
because I think it just kind of holds up. Again, the costumes aged well because this fashion is back,
Oh
baby.
yeah, the
Ex-
sports
ex-
lux, the sports lux looks.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Except I would say, I don't know. I feel like the Wormwoods and Trunchbull, obviously, I think, Trunchbull is supposed to be kind of othered, right? So she's
She's
kind of
dressed
not
like
within
she's
this.
from the kind of 1940s school mistress, isn't
Yes,
she? Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I would say the Wormwoods are like 60s,
Oh, I don't know.
70s.
I feel like they're kind of naff 80s. Like
Okay.
the
Yeah, yeah,
gold
yeah.
chains, the
I
leopard
agree with that.
print,
Yeah, yes,
the
yeah.
cycling shorts. I mean,
Yeah.
all of those things that I just said, like the cycling shorts, like they had a big moment a few years ago in fashion on the catwalks. But it is very it says naff, doesn't it? It says real housewives.
Yeah. Again, the Wormwoods and Trunchbull, they are kind of othered. They look different. And when I mean like the costumes, I mean, again, Miss Honey, I'd wear one of her dresses tomorrow if somebody gave it to me. And the kids, I'm like, I would totally buy these dresses for my child. What aged badly, and I know this is the point of the movie, but the child neglect. It was just hard for me to watch. And it did make me cringe, but I guess it's also probably because I'm a mom now.
Mm.
And I understand that is the point of the
It's
film,
sort of
but it
funny
just
because when you think about how, I don't know, maybe your parents were very responsible, but I do think that there is an element of like 80s and early 90s children were raised differently from how millennials raise their children now.
yeah,
Because just in terms of things like pregnancy advice, you're not meant to eat a whole bunch of things and you're not meant to drink at all. You're not meant to
it's too
drink
much.
a
I'm
drop.
sorry.
But
It's too
but
much.
in back in the day, it was just maybe have 1 or 2 units if you're pregnant.
Yes. Yeah.
And we turned
They
out all
told my
right.
mom, yeah, if in her final trimester, if you get a little stressed, just have a glass of wine. It's fine. My mom was a teetotaler, but I thought it was so funny that they told her that. But I think you make a good point. I was thinking more like they just throw her in the back of the
Oh
van.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
nowadays it's like don't get a secondhand pram or something. They're just tossing her into the back of the car.
Yeah. And just leaving her, to fend for herself. Again, I know that's the point of the movie, people. I'm not daft, but I was just like, oh, poor Matilda. I just wanted to, yeah, I wanted to be Miss Honey and adopt her.
Yeah.
So what do you think about what was like very 90s for this?
The catalogue shopping is very funny.
Yes.
I always say it, but the kind of cluttered, very traditional style of the interiors filled with stuff
Yeah.
is very 90s. And then I would say the use of Send Me On My Way by Rusted Root on the
Yes.
soundtrack. It's not a song I could identify if you played it to me and I could say the name, but everyone knows that song because it's been used in
Yes.
so many films and adverts and things. We'll link to it in the show notes. You'll recognize it.
You'll dance to it, trust me.
Mm.
Yeah, for me, same thing. The music I where was I yesterday? I think I was at work and it came on the
Yeah.
station at work and I was like, take me up, da-da-dum, da-da. And I'm just like, yes,
On the
Matilda.
way. On my way.
So yes, the music, I loved it. And then the FBI agents when they're in the car and they have that big but mini TV with the antenna because they're watching TV. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, so 90s. Now it'd be, they'd be both be on our phones, but
Yeah.
it was both small and large. I don't know how
Mm.
else to explain it, but when you watch it, you'll know what I mean. Okay, what awards would you give this film?
I've got a couple. So, best game show, the $1 million sticky, which
Yeah.
involves people getting covered in goo and then going into a sort of cubicle where they get dollar notes to stick to themselves and presumably get to keep whatever they catch. And it's just perfectly brain dead. I don't know if this is actually directly from the book, but like it's very Roald Dahl-esque, this idea of here's just the dumbest thing you could possibly think of. But now there are dumber things
Oh my gosh, so
on
many dumber things.
screens. There are dumber
Again,
things.
that has probably been like a bit in a game show already now. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I could
exactly.
totally see that.
And then the best insult is, and this is a Miss Trunchbull insult, of course. The demented, drooling, slime-breathed little Lilliputian. Also, it's referencing another book, Gulliver's Travels. So it's layers within layers,
Layers within
and
layers.
you wouldn't have got that if you were 6 at the time. But now I'm older than 6, and I got it, and I was like, ha ha. I just like slime breathed. It's very witchy, very
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 Roald Dahl.
dull. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I want to add one thing to the 90s bit I forgot to say. The
Mm.
end montage that was sped up, that was very like 90s. Like you see their life now and they're
Mm.
like living together and then it's like sped up. I don't know. I felt like
Yeah.
that was very like late 90s. As far as awards though, for most unrealistic portrayal of a woman a day after giving birth, I'm going to give it to Mrs. Wormwood again. This is knocking off Denzel Washington's wife from Philadelphia, who looked amazing 2 days a week after giving birth.
Yeah.
Also, most still American conversation, Mr. Wormwood, Mrs. Wormwood. How much did this baby cost? Why did you need to get this after
Mm.
having Matilda? Because the cost of healthcare apparently in 96 was bad and it still is.
Mm.
Always been old and it's still good to see her. June Squibb as the librarian. That was 30 years ago. That
Mhm.
woman is in her 90s, still working, was nominated for an Oscar 10, 15 years ago. She was the lead in a film directed by Scarlett Johansson last year. So
Yes.
go June Squibb. Always good to see her and always been old. So that's good to know. Okay. So as we close this out, do you think was this as good as we remember as kids, Chloe? And do you think you'd watch this again? Is it worth returning to? Does it
Mm.
hold up?
I think I would return to it with a child. So
Yeah.
I would say watch this because I think it's got that kind of childlike glee and simplicity that I think could work for a 7, 8, 9 year old. I feel like so many kids' movies today are too angsty, they're too dark, both literally and tonally. And I just think there's something very enjoyable about something where it's just lots of stunts. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
sequence with Miss Trunchbull in the classroom towards the end, it's just a series of slapstick things
Yes.
happening to her to teach her a lesson, and it's very simple, and I think you don't really get that anymore. I think it kind of holds up, but probably if I were gonna sit through it again, I would have a child so that I can enjoy a
Yeah.
child's reaction to it.
Yeah.
But I would definitely watch the scene where she swings a kid by her pigtails around and around because that really cracks me up.
Over and over. I'll link it. It's a really how they made that happen was really interesting, and they did a really good job
Yeah.
with it. I totally agree. As I've already said, I was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I want to watch this, but I did enjoy it. But I wouldn't watch it again on my own. Like I wouldn't say to my husband, "Hey, baby, let's watch Matilda." We're trying to figure out what to watch. Let's watch Matilda. But I totally, in 3 or 4 years, will watch
Mm.
this with Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, she'll be at the perfect age for it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, a young Mara. We didn't really. I feel bad. We didn't really talk about Mara Wilson, but I like really kind of old soul there because she also before this she was in Mrs. Doubtfire. She was a very busy working child actress. You needed someone like her to really anchor this film.
Yes.
Because Matilda is old soul. What recommendations would you give someone after they watch this?
So I want to recommend Labyrinth because it is 40 this year. All the
Oh.
best things are 40 this year. Uh, so it just turned 40 a couple of months ago, and it is an absolute banger. One of the best kids movies ever made. One of the best fantasy movies ever made. It's just a delight. So yeah, directed by Jim Henson, written by Terry Jones of Monty Python, and of course starring David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. And I picked it for its sort of zany, oddball energy, which I feel like is quite
Yeah.
in keeping with Matilda, but it even more so and even more crazy. And it's a film where it's almost as much about the Muppets and the kind of madcap fantasy as it is about the human actors. It's just very surreal at times, like you feel like you're on drugs. And then to recommend another Roald Dahl film, The Witches from
Yeah.
1990,
That's a great one.
directed by Nicholas Roeg. Every time I think about the fact that it's directed by Nicholas Roeg, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just so weird because I think he's most celebrated for Don't Look Now, and
Mhm.
he made lots of adult psychological dramas. Jim Henson's also involved for the prosthetics of The Witches. I find it really funny, a funny
So
combination.
good.
But yeah, and I think the fact that Dahl loves a female villainess and Angelica Houston as the Grand High
Is
Witch she's just so
mm.
memorably horrid, she's operatic, it's brilliant. Just a sort of small spoiler aside, Dahl was apparently furious about the ending because in the
Of
book,
witches.
yeah, The Witches, yeah, because in the book, the main character's turned into a mouse, as here, but he just stays on, living on as a mouse. But I think they did shoot both versions, but they ended up going with a happier version in the final cut of the film where he gets turned back into a boy.
Of
So
course, doll.
yeah.
That.
Well, I mean, there we are. So I find that really funny. Then I would say 101 Dalmatians, the 90s version. Obviously not
Mm.
watched this since I was a kid. So, proceed with caution. Maybe it's crap. I don't know. 1996, so same year as Matilda, directed by Stephen Herrick. And I just picked this because it's another children's literary adaptation. And it has Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I love a female villain, and she's just the most glamorous, and she's also every bit as psychotic as Miss Trunchbull and the Grand High Witch. And then my last recommendation is Captain Underpants, the first epic movie from 2017. Do
I've
you know
never
this film?
seen it.
Okay,
No.
so this is the thing. It is a genuine surprise. I picked it for its kind of zany energy. It's very silly. It has lots of toilet humor, but it's also really charming and it's got great writing. It's also based on a children's book series by Dav Pilkey,
Yeah.
but it's about two school children who hypnotize their head teacher, or I should say principal, into believing he's a superhero. It genuinely, it's really funny. It is a
Okay.
recommended
I
film.
can't remember. Is it a cartoon?
It is. It's animated.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's like CG animation.
Maybe I'll watch it with Charlotte.
Yeah.
I only have two, actually. the first one, it just kept coming to me as I was watching it, and that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone, wherever you
Mm,
find yourself,
mm.
2001. Another book
It's
adaptation of
Philosopher's Stone.
huh?
It's Philosopher's Stone.
Okay.
We're not dumbing down here.
What they did for America. Okay, if it's good enough for America, Chloe. Anyway, another book adaptation about an wanted child who's actually extraordinary and who finds their family elsewhere, by another author who had some questionable political beliefs. But also, I would also recommend if you like Pam Ferris here, you're going to like her in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, 2004. And she plays Aunt Marge in that and is just like, mwah. When I watched this, I was like, oh, yeah, I've seen her again in something. What is it? And then it hit me. I was like, oh, yeah, of course, she's Aunt Marge. And again, pitch perfect. And she's great in that. Also, Alfonso Cuarón directed that.
Mhm.
Sometimes these really good directors, they need to make some money. And so they'll go do a Harry Potter film or a
But it's a
Marvel
good
film.
one. It's the best
Eh,
one, isn't it? Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite. I think the book is better. But they're different mediums. What's great about that one too is that's where it starts to get dark for Harry Potter.
Mm.
The first two Harry Potters are very much for children, but this is where it starts to, Harry is realizing the stakes. The stakes are kind of upped in that, and it's a bit darker. And again, he builds upon his family when he finds his foster dad, and in some ways. So yeah, so those are my two: Harry Potter and the Philosopher's or Sorcerer's Stone, and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And that's it.
Yeah.
So if you like this, please like and review wherever you are listening right now. You can follow us on Letterbox, where we put some of our recommendations. We'll follow you back. You can follow us on Instagram at Total 90s Recall, Total 90S Recall. You can email us at total90srecall@gmail.com. What do you think of Matilda? Are there some films that we should be considering next? Let us know. And also keep the comments coming on YouTube. Yes, you can listen and watch on YouTube. It's mostly just a listen, but you can see our beautiful faces. And next time you're throwing a child out a window, tell them about Total 90s Recall. And that's all. That's all we got. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And we'll see you at the movies.